Bilam is generally an object of derision. We love to make fun of him. That's the man who thought that he could, go with Balak's messengers to curse the Jewish people, even though Hashem had said, "Don't go." He was the man who. Oh yeah, there's too much noise here on this laptop. Um, okay, that should be sorted now. Apologies. Yeah, he's the man who uh, saddles his own donkey in the morning to go with the messengers, and then the commentary say, you think you're doing a big thing there. Abraham Avinu did this, many generations earlier, when he saddled his own donkey to go to the Akedah, because he was so keen to do this. It means nothing. This is, the man um, who yeah, is unable to see an angel in front of him, which his donkey can't hear. Animals don't talk. What is the matter? But starts arguing back. So we like to laugh at him. We like to, make him a fool. But in fact, even though all of the above is correct, Bilam was a prophet. Bilam had the ability to communicate with the Almighty, not at the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. And, there's a whole discussion as to why. And he was given those powers, but just in one line, so that the nations of the world could never argue. Had they been given the great prophet to lead them and inspire them, they would not have, turned out the way they have. So, they're given a prophet to lead them and inspire them, and so that there is kind of that level of equity there. Um, but when Bilam actually starts opening up his mouth, um, there's some very powerful stuff that comes out. I'd like to look just at actually one line of Bilam, which he repeats twice. So it's two lines, because they are very topical and very relevant. So this is, of course, a logo that we have become accustomed to seeing, and that's the name of the current war operation campaign that the Israeli army is on. Am Kelavi is actually a direct quote from this week's parsha, and it features there a couple of times, and I'd like to look at those quotes with you. But that's, it's translated as rising lion in English. It's not literal, because Am Kelavi actually means a nation like a lion. What the word lavi means, because we're accustomed um, to refer to a lion in Hebrew as an aryeh. The lavi, it's not clear what the difference between a lavi and an aryeh is. They're both lions. Some interpret this, the lavi, as a cub, as a young lion. Others say that a lavi is actually a female lion. The problem I have with that is that very often we have the female form as levia. So I always personally thought it meant a cub, but there's another word for lion cub, which is gur. Maybe gur is younger. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's a lion. Whether it's a female or a male, whether it's a young one or more senior one, is irrelevant. And of course, a lion is a symbol of power. It's a symbol of Judah. It's extremely powerful. And many countries have chosen the lion as their symbol, but in our case, it's actually the symbol of the tribe of Yehuda. And I'm going to come back to that a little bit later. Now, here is a fascinating statement made by the rabbis in the Talmud. This is in Brachot, page 12b. And the rabbis say that the sages were very close to bringing in the blessings of Bilam from this portion, into the Shema. So in the morning you would say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad in the first paragraph of Shema, and then you would say the second paragraph of Shema V'Hayayim Shamoah, and then there's a third paragraph, of course, which is Vayomer, which is a mitzvah of tzitzit, the remembrance of the exodus from Egypt. And then they wanted to have an addendum. They wanted to add quotes from this week's parsha. Why didn't they? Not because it was inappropriate, but because it would be an imposition on the community. And we're very careful with a concept that we call Torah Hatzibur, which is the not making an imposition on the community. So we're very conscious of that in our services in general. For example, it is inappropriate not to have the Torah rolled up to the right place. And unfortunately, I've seen in some congregations where you come in and there's a special maftir, the second Torah, and they take a Torah out from the ark, but it's in the wrong place. Oh no, that's still on Pesach from last year, and you start rolling, and that's actually a disrespect to the community. It keeps them in shul for longer for no good purpose. So we're always very conscious of not wanting to extend the service unduly, and this is why the rabbis refrained from adding the portions, the verses from the portion of the blessings of Bilam, but they did not. But they felt it was very appropriate, actually, to do so. And then the Talmud gets into a bit of a discussion as to, what's so appropriate and what's so beautiful about the blessings of Bilam that they should be incorporated. Now, right at the beginning of Yisidur, you have the couple of verses that I said as we walk into Shul, Matov Alecha Yaakov Mishkaratecha Yisrael, don't know why they always translate it as how goodly. How good are you, tents, Israel? This is what Bilam said, praising the Jews. And when we come into Shul and we enter a place of worship, we recite that, but there's no thought of putting that into the Shema. So what is it, actually, of the blessings of Bilam that would be appropriate? So this is Rabbi Yossi Ba'avin's theory, because there was one before, which I've skipped, that suggested something else. Yossi Ba'avin says the following. He says, then the sages sought to establish this portion as part of the Shema is because of this quote. He laid down like a lion and a lioness, who shall rise him? I'm not sure if couched is not a typo. It should be crouched, maybe. Those who bless you are blessed, those who curse you are cursed. That's a continuation, and that's from this week's Parsha, Numbers 24:9. And this would kind of connect with the Shema, where you have the idea of when you lie down and when you rise. So this idea, this concept, therefore, would fit in very well with the Shema, and this is Rabbi Yossi Ba'avin's theory as to why this verse from a Parsha, and there you have it, Lavi, and this is the crouching lion that's going to rise up and do what it has to. So that is Shachav. He's lying down. Yekimenu, he's going to rise up. In the Shema, we say, B'shach b'cha, the same root, Uv kumecha. You say the Shema when you lie down, and you say the Shema when you rise in the morning. So this is how Rabbi Yosef Ba'avin saw it. But let's try and take it a little bit deeper than that. Here, Rashi, sorry. So if we actually look at the parasha, we'll find twice that metaphor, that comparison to the lion. In Bilam's second set of blessings and in his third, respectively. In the second set of blessings, these are the words: Lavi Yakum, right? Ke'en Ke'am Ke'lavi Yakum. And this is actually the words that have given the name to this particular military campaign, this war, Am Kelavi. So he rises like they've translated as lioness. Kari Nasa, he rises himself, talking about the Jewish people. This is Bilam speaking. He raises himself like a lion, will not go to sleep until his feast on his prey, drunk the blood of the slain. That's not really relevant. We're looking at that first half of the verse here. So we have the quote, Am Kelavi, he rises and leaps up like a lion. Rashi on this verse says the following. What is it about the people who rise as a lioness? When they rise from their sleep in the morning, they show themselves strong as a lioness and as a lion to snatch at, just like a lion, snatches at the divine precept to perform them immediately, to clothe themselves with tefillin, read the Shema, clothe themselves with the talis, read the Shema, and lay tefillin. This is Rashi on that verse. That is the first instance of this lion metaphor. And then there is a second instance where the Jewish people are compared to a lion. They crouch, they lie down like a lioness who rise them. Blessed are those who bless you, cursed are those who curse you. So kara shachav ka'ari uchlavi meyekimenu. That is the second verse. So he crouches. Yeah, clearly it was a typo earlier. Lies down like a lion, and now interestingly, of the two verses, which one did the Talmud quote? The first one. This one here. Sorry, the second one. This is the verse that the Talmud says would be the reason why we would include it in the Shema. So we have here shachav, to go to sleep, and again yekimenu, to rise. So let's try and understand this. Bilam was not the first to compare the Jewish people to a lion. This is predates him by many centuries. Where is the first instance of this comparison? It features in the blessings of Yaakov to his sons. When just before his death, he gathers them around his deathbed, and he says, I'm going to tell you about your future, what's going to happen at the end of days, and he speaks to each of his sons about their destiny and their characteristics and how they can best fulfill their potential when they become a tribe, when their offspring, their descendants form that family of the tribe of Shimon and Levi. And when it comes to Yehuda, then Jacob uses that metaphor of the lion. He talks about a gur aryeh Yehuda. He talks about Judah as lion's whelp, even though what whelp means. But gur would be a cub. Pray, my son, have you grown? And then we got the same kind of metaphor here. Kara ravatz karyeh uchlavi me'ekimenu. He crouches like a lion, but then who dare rise him? Who's going to rise him and make him get up? So the same idea here of crouching and then rising. So there's a very fascinating medrash Rabbah on Breshit. And what does the Medrash Rabbah tell us? It says there are two phases in history that correspond to the various ways in which the Jews are compared to a lion. Of course, this is a tribe of Yehuda, but we're all called Yehudim. Because we all connect with that tribe of Judah, which is one of the kind of the primary main tribes. And the Medrash says the following. He crouches, lies, but the word used there is ravatz. And ravatz is kind of crouches, but kind of, like the lion is ready to pounce. He's wide awake. So even though it's crouching. And then the second verse, which is from our parsha. So this is from the blessings of Jacob, and that is in the book of Breshit. end of Bereshit, Vayichi. And in this other verse, where it says shachav, that is, he crouches as in lying, but is like lying down. And the Medrash says we're talking about different periods in our history. Um, there were times when the Jewish people are compared to a crouching lion, but as in a lion that's crouching and kind of on its front legs and ready to pounce, wide awake. There are times when we are compared to the lion that is kind of asleep. So he's lying down, and the Medrash is suggesting that lying down is kind of not just very passive, um, but lying down denotes either sleep, or one uses also the word shachav when one is talking about an illness. So a person who's ill is also lying down, and that's the verb that's used, suggesting that ravatz refers to a time in history when the Jewish people are kind of on the up, and then there is shachav. There is a time when we are kind of more passive, more asleep, maybe not as functional, maybe more in a pathological state. And if you go back to the Medrash, he actually puts a time frame on it. And he says, here's a share button, he says, from Peretz until Tzidkiah. Now, what is that period? So Yehuda, Judah, had a son. Um, a son who's called Peretz. They were twins that were born to Tamar. One was called Peretz, the other was called Zerach, and Peretz ends up being the ancestor of the Davidic dynasty. His great 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 grandson, I think it's 7, 8 generations, whatever it is King David, and that's kind of the first Messiah, David HaMelech, and then the Jewish people on and up from Peretz. The Jews, you know, there's Egypt, but then there is the Exodus, nationhood, and King Tzidkiah or Zedekiah. He's the last of the kings of Judah before destruction of the temple, and it ends with him. And that's Ravatz, as in crouches, but ready to, on haunches and ready to pounce. And then we have from Tzidkiah onwards the Babylonian exile. We have the period of the Second Temple, which was, even though there was kind of religious autonomy and worship, we weren't independent. We were under Greek, Persian, Roman rule right through the entire time. So we were more instead of exile until current era, until the Messianic revelation. Please God, should it happen? It should happen very soon. So those are. It kind of gives us an understanding as to when the Talmud tells us that we should have included one of the verses of Bilam. He refers not to the first instance of the lioness, or the lion, or the cub, but to the second one, because he's dealing in a state of exile, and Bilam goes through all of Jewish history, and he gives predictions and prophecies that are short term and they're long term. And it's actually in the prophecy of Bilam that we have the scriptural references to Mashiach, to that era. I'm going to show them inside. If you read Rambam, Mishnah Torah, right before the very end. So there's the laws of kings and the laws of their wars, and the last two chapters deal with the Messianic era. And he substantiates that the belief in Mashiach is actually a Torah precept. It's not something that, somebody told a child who was scared and wouldn't go to sleep, don't worry, you don't have to worry about the sirens from Iran. The balance from around Mashiach is coming and is going to save us. Always going to be good. It's just, it's not that kind of a Baba Meiser, it's actually an essential belief, part of the 13 principles of faith, and something which is rooted in Torah. So Rambam um, substantiates the belief in Mashiach with the following. Reference to Mashiach is also made in the portion of Bilam, who prophesies about two anointed kings. The first one, David, who saved Israel from her oppressors. Then the final anointed king, who will be one of his descendants. Mashiach has to be Mashiach ben David, save Israel in the end of days. And then he quotes from our parsha, okay? Numbers 24, 17, and 18. I see that now refers to David. This is Bilam. Bilam is talking. And he's saying, I see it, but not now. That's David. Okay, he was still in the pre-David era, of course, and then I perceive it, but not in the near future. This refers to the Messianic king, and he continues. A star shall go forth from Jacob. This refers to David. A staff shall arise in Israel, refers to Mashiach. Crushing all of Moab's princes refers to King David. And he brings proof, Samuel 8:2. And then decimating all of Seth's descendants, this refers to Mashiach, king, as Zechariah chapter 9 says he will rule from sea to sea. Not river to sea, sea to sea. I'm not sure which sea they are that he's going to be ruling, but that's, the Mashiach was going to be the actual global king and ruler. And I think there is another couple of verses. The Edom will be demolished. This refers to King David. And Seir will be destroyed. This refers to the Messianic king. And Obadiah chapter 1, saviors will ascend from Mount Zion to judge the mountain of Esau. So here we have fascinating prophecies about Mashiach in that prophecy of Bilam, and in those blessings of Bilam, which began with blessings, but then at the end he says to Balak, you know what? Let me give you some advice on how to deal with these people, and he then goes into pure prophecies and predictions. And the verses we just read are from that end section of the parsha. So powerful portion in which the belief in Mashiach from the Torah is rooted, and it resonates so much with us when we are now in the midst of an unbelievable time in history. Powerful things going on all around us. Think back of that Rashi that explains about the idea of the lion rising in the morning. Rashi says, what goes on in the dawn of time? Um, that's in a small scale, our day. So in the dawn of our days, we get up and we grab mitzvahs. You mentioned specifically talis, tefillin, that's it, sit and tefillin. And we now kind of nearing the dawn of history. We're in the dark night. The Jewish people are not the rising lion that's referred to, the crouching lion that says rovates. We've been sleeping, but now we're waking up. We've been going through a long period of exile that started with the destruction of the first temple and King Tzidkiyahu, and is until now and beyond, until Mashiach. Hopefully, there's very little there in between now and Mashiach. And so what does the Gemara say to us? Why should we read that verse? Because it refers to lying down and getting up. But that's what Shema is about. Shema is Meshach B'chav Kumech. Shema is about declaring our faith in Hashem when it is day and when it is night. Day referring, of course, to a time and an era when the sun's shining on us and we feel invincible and everything's good. But and it's easy to declare our faith in one God when everything is going great. But that Shema Yisrael is also said, "B'shoch b'cha," when you go to sleep, when it's dark outside, when it's night, and things aren't going right. You don't feel that divine light upon you. You feel you're in a state of darkness, and Shema is recited there just the same. And these are the two verses the Medrash talks about. The one in Breshit, where Yehuda is being called the lion poised to rise, awake, and sitting on its sitting, standing, whatever it is, on its haunches, ready to go, ready to just jump up and go forward. That's the one verse, and the other one from our parsha, the latter one that talks about the lion who is shochev, he's lying, he's ailing. That's the line of exile. Two periods. Peretz down to King Tzidkiyahu to Mashiach. The lion poised to pounce, and the sick or sleeping lion that is lying down. So it's unbelievable that it's in this period when the Israeli military has named their operation Am Kelavi, or Rising Lion, a reference to the fact that even in the darkness of times, Israel is always going to be able to jump up and rise up and be there. And we've seen a huge declaration of Shema Yisrael, the levels of faith that have permeated a nation, from soldiers, singing songs of faith before going into battle, to what Rashi say, that we wake up and we grab mitzvahs. I mean, the number of pairs of tzitzit that have been shipped to Israeli soldiers who are wearing them as it's under your shirt and nobody knows you're wearing it, and it's an act of identification and of faith. I don't know numbers, but I mean, I've seen figures, 24,000 pairs have been shipped, and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's absolutely, mind blowing how we're grabbing mitzvahs, and it's not just soldiers. And I've seen random people here in Johannesburg walking around with tzitzit and no yarmulke, and it looks a little bit incongruous, but no, it's an act of identification with wanting to grab a mitzvah and be surrounded by it. I was at Genesis. It was Sunday morning. Yes, so Sunday morning is when that major attack took place in Iran, and I happened to be at the Bagel Zone with a couple of Chabad young men who had arrived with their tefillin, and I watched. Nobody said no. I've been there. Asking a stranger to put on tefillin is opening yourself up to a lot of refusals and a lot of rejection, and it's you got to have a tough skin. But that day, everyone identified. Everyone was uh, you know we got to live through this period, and please God, the prophecies uttered by Bilam and many other of our prophets, but he was one of the first. Um, his blessings are so powerful. King Solomon says that the power of light is best appreciated in the darkness. Yitron ha'or min ha'choshech. You don't appreciate, light in the day. When it's dark, then you appreciate the light. When the blessing comes from a Bilam, it's a far deeper, far more powerful bracha than many other prophecies and predictions and blessings about a people. So may his predictions come true, and may the lion who's no longer sleeping rise fully, and may the end of time come when we conclude that era that goes from King Tzidkiyahu all the way to Mashiach, please God, very soon.